If that doesn't work, if even after all of that you're still being minimized, find a specialist who won't minimize your symptoms,
Right.
because there are effective, safe treatments and you do not need to keep suffering. And if your symptoms are being minimized, if you're being brushed off, if you're being told that somebody else understands what's happening in your body better than you do, you need to find somebody else to talk to.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. I may have shared with all of you a while back that recently we've had some changes in terms of how HRT shows up in our lives. For a long time, it was black boxed, and as a result, doctors were hesitant to prescribe it because of the restrictions or the warnings that were on it. That has changed. There was an analysis that was done that was basically incorrect. And now we're in the process of getting the word out in the fact that when you have these symptoms as a result of being somewhere in the menopausal stage, you do not have to suffer. You don't have to be a victim of it. And I'm trying to get the word out about this, and that's why I'm so glad to have with us today Christy Thozer. She is a doctor of medical science, a PA, and a menopause specialist. She works with an organization called Corla Health, and that's a telehealth clinic that provides comprehensive menopause and perimenopause care to women all across California, and eventually they'll be opening up nationwide. When advanced training in women's health and hormone therapy, this is what she focuses on, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What's going on in the world of menopause, how it's beginning to change, and the kinds of things you need to be looking for and knowing about in order to adequately advocate for yourself. Dr. Christy, welcome to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's great to be here.
Now tell us about Corla Health. What is it? What kind of service is it that you provide?
Yeah, so we provide comprehensive perimenopause and menopause care to anybody who is going through symptoms of estrogen loss, progesterone loss, testosterone, what have you. We provide comprehensive start to finish care, everything that happens to a person in that time because of those hormonal shifts. We do it entirely via telemedicine, our onboarding appointments, follow-up appointments, and complete 24/7 access care to your specialist in between those times.
I was reading part of your bio and it said in California, but actually, because it's a teleservice, can you operate in other states or is it just in California?
So because of the way medical licensing works, we are limited at the time to just California, but we do plan to expand beyond that in the future, hopefully in the near future. It'd be fantastic.
And when you first created this service, what were your thoughts in terms of what it was you wanted to accomplish?
Yeah. Working in my past as in generalist OBGYN, the number of people that would come in with symptoms related to perimenopause and menopause who had never been given any answers, or symptoms had been brushed off in the past, hadn't been appropriately treated. And I would see them coming into my office and finally being able to offer them that treatment. And it was shocking to me the number of people who had that experience of prior to that point, never having been offered care, even when they finally spoke up and asked for it, not being given that care. I was really glad to see the people that I did in that generalist OBGYN office that I was able to help. But at a certain point, it really drove a passion in me to do as much as I could, not only in seeking out people that needed that help specifically, but also making sure the information got out there, because there is so much misinformation on this topic. And I was just really driven to do what I could to combat that and make sure that the appropriate care reached people before had waited 10 years without proper care.
Yeah, I've talked to many women in the last 18 years who many of them suffered through a lot of the symptoms and never got any relief, but that is no longer necessary. You don't have to suffer any longer with these symptoms. What are some of the misconceptions that are out there about menopause?
I think the biggest misconception is still out there about HRT, these pervasive myths that really arose from that study in 2002 by the WHI, the Women's Health Initiative, that was the stem of where all of these problems and all of this misinformation about HRT has come from. That was a study that was done and was interpreted prematurely and in flawed ways. And with good meaning, people rush to say, everybody stop your HRT. So
Right.
that's why in 2002 we had this big scare and everyone was taken off their HRT suddenly. And from then until now, there have been continuously these ideas that HRT is dangerous. And really, what we know now is that was a misinterpretation of the data that we had at that point. And we needed to get more information, get more accurate information, and really interpret fully what the data was showing us at that time. And now we know that was, again, it was well meaning at the time, but it was a big swing in the wrong direction. And we know now that HRT is very safe. And not only, that, but for many women, it increases your lifespan if you're put on HRT, especially if you're proactively put on it at the right time, is incredibly beneficial for people, let alone not all the dangers that people feared at that time. Not to mention, let's not let people suffer.
What is the current research saying about the safetyness of it, and what are some of the benefits of hormone therapy?
We know now that it is very safe, and obviously it's an individualized conversation with your clinician. There are individual if you have a personal history, if you are a survivor from or thriver from hormone sensitive breast cancer, that may be a conversation. If you personally have that history, then it is a conversation about, okay, what is the right thing for you, and it may be a more nuanced conversation. Other than that, that is the situation where we need to really dive in. But it is an incredibly safe medication. And we know with anything that there it needs to be a conversation about your individual risks and what's going on for you. But for the vast majority of people, it is going to be far more beneficial, not only for your safety and, like I said, lifespan, but also for dealing with issues that really affect quality of life. So the benefits far outweigh the risks for the vast majority of people. In terms of the benefits, how many people, unfortunately, do we all know that fell at some point, broke a significant bone, maybe broke their hip, and never was the same, never really got up and was active and lived a full life. And it ultimately that led to more health issues for them. One of the greatest and most clear cut examples of the benefits of HRT are in combating that exact scenario. Estrogen loss leads to that lack of bone density, that deterioration of bone density, which leads to easier fractures, breaking bones, and that is more detrimental to health than I think we all realize really when that happens. So by replacing that estrogen, we combat that loss of bone density and we prevent those fractures. When you have a minor fall, which is a chain reaction after that. If you don't have that fracture, you don't have those months of being bedridden, which affect your activity and your health from that point on. There are also tremendous benefits for your brain health. It just, the list goes on.
It's a huge list because, as I've said before on the podcast, and I say it as many times as I can, that estrogen is responsible for over 300 processes in the body. So, therefore, when your estrogen begins to lower, of course, your body's going to be impacted. The interesting thing is that it presents itself in different ways at different times for women. I know for me personally, I had the hot flashes and all of that, and I really didn't even talk to my doctor about it. But I had a key issue that I had no idea was tied to my menopause until much, much later on. And that's anxiety. There is such a thing as menopausal anxiety, and that's as a result of low progesterone. And I want to back up a bit because maybe some people don't understand what HRT is. You mentioned
Yeah,
something about estrogen, but if you could explain to everyone, what is HRT?
absolutely. HRT is let's break it down as at its simplest form. It is hormone replacement. So as you go through many processes in life, and right now we're talking about perimenopause and menopause, your hormones deplete. There is a shift in the natural hormones that your body makes. And back when humans were only living maybe not even to menopause, that wasn't an issue. But now we've reached a point where we're living much longer. And we need, in order to have a healthy life past that point when those hormones diminish naturally, we need to step in and replace those hormones. So that is what HRT is. And the thing that we talk about most, or that gets talked about most, is stepping in and replacing the estrogen. But it is also many other things. It's progesterone, it's testosterone, and not only, and let's break down as well, HRT. When we say that just HRT, most often people are talking about systemic HRT. So that's any form of hormone replacement that maybe you take as a pill, as a patch, a hormone patch, a gel, anything like that affects your entire body. So that's going to help a lot with things like hot flashes, anxiety, brain fog, all of those things that are whole body issues. And then there is what I like to talk about a lot, which is vaginal estrogen. So that's the estrogen, most often a cream. Sometimes that also comes as a vaginal tablet, ring. There are a lot of different forms for that as well. But that is local hormone replacement for the genitourinary system. So that specifically targets things like dryness, painful sex, frequent UTIs, frequency of urination. If you're getting up in the night to urinate, it it helps with that. And I think people really aren't talking about that enough either, because these are
Oh,
significant issues for people.
yes, in fact, I know that for now. I'll be 69 in 2026, in June of 2026. I don't know when people might be listening to this, but for me, I didn't really take a look at hormone replacement until I got about 65 because I was having issues with vaginal estrogen. I started getting yeast infections, and that was because of the thinness of my vaginal wall, and it lets more bacteria in. And over time, you start having these problems, chemical imbalances with itching and things like that. But what a lot of people don't realize, for those people who are in their 70s and 80s, let's say, who might be in a assisted living condition for maybe another reason, and they start getting these urinary infections all the time, that could be fatal. That could be fatal. And in many cases, if they had some kind of hormone replacement therapy, in this case, vaginal estrogen, that could have been prevented. So many
Mm-hmm.
things that we suffered from, there's no need for us to suffer with. And it's not even about just having uncomfortable sex, although that's important too, but it's also about your overall health. And so many women in their 70s and 80s suffer from urinary tract infections. And that's one of the issues, is because of low estrogen. And that's why I thought it was so important for us to be talking about this, because women don't have to suffer through that.
Oh, 100%. Vaginal estrogen is a life-saving medication. It is a preventative treatment for those UTIs, which you're absolutely correct. If we could get more information out there, get more people on vaginal estrogen, the number of UTIs we would prevent, the courses of antibiotics, visits to the emergency department, hospitalizations, and for many people, unfortunately, fatality that results from these UTIs is a life-saving preventative medication. And vaginal estrogen is incredibly safe, even for those patients I talked about before who have a personal history of hormone sensitive breast cancer. It is safe even for them. It is an incredibly safe medication, and it's life saving.
I am loving the conversation we're having with Dr. Christy, and we will be right back after a word from our sponsor. Let me ask you, how often are you dealing with congestion, sinus pressure, or allergies and just pushing through it? If that's you, I want to share something that really made a difference for me. It's called Sonu, a drug-free, FDA-approved therapy that uses personalized sound waves to help open your nasal passages. What makes it unique is that the sound waves are custom tuned to your facial structure. So it's designed especially for you. When I started using it, I noticed a real shift, especially with that stuffy nose I used to wake up with every morning. It actually helped me breathe clearly again. Those gentle vibrations work through your sinus cavities too, calming inflammation, reducing congestion, and supporting natural airflow. And it even works with your nervous system to reduce swelling. No medication needed. If you want to check it out for yourself, click the link on my show page to learn more.
I tell women all the time as they begin this journey, because you can begin it in your 30s, in your mid 30s, and it lasts
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of your life. I'll also try to let people know that you hear people talk about, oh, I'm not on menopause anymore. And that's not
Mm,
true. You had your perimenopausal, which is you haven't had a full 365 plus 1 days of no period.
right.
Once you have that 365, 366 days of no period, for that day, you are menopausal. The day after that, you're postmenopausal for the rest of your life. Okay. If you didn't have a lot of symptoms, or if you thug it through the symptoms when you were in your 40s and 50s, understand they can come back in a different way in your
Mm-hmm.
60s and 70s. And whenever I hear people say, I'm in my 50s and I haven't had any problems, I'm thinking, you haven't had any that have presented yet. But over time, not having that estrogen in your system can be really a sad case of events when it comes to your overall health. And many times, what happens with your overall health when these symptoms pop up, it's misdiagnosed by doctors who don't know much about hormone therapy or hormones or any of that. So, for someone who's trying to advocate for themselves, they know something is wrong and they're not quite sure what it is, how do they discuss this with their doctors? What advice can you give them?
I have lots of advice for this, but I also want to acknowledge how wrong it is that we're leaving it to patients to bring this up on their own. This should be something that clinicians are proactively bringing up with you, because how hard is it? What it's such a big ask for somebody who, for example, is experiencing painful or uncomfortable sex. What a huge ask is it to be asking them to muster up everything that it takes with all their history of being dismissed in the past or not having issues taken seriously, to come to their clinician's office and share some, such a sensitive issue. And when they, like I said, have all of this history of not being taken seriously, having their issues laughed off or brushed off, to then raise that. I'm constantly telling my colleagues how important it is that we're bringing this up, so that it's not on a patient to bring these things up. We know when you are going through life changes that these things are happening, and it should be a proactive conversation to get appropriate treatment to people. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about that.
No, you are absolutely right. And as you're talking about that, I think most women can relate to the idea of talking with your doctor about your symptoms once you if you get the courage to do it, and then being minimized or being
Right.
dismissed or being placated or mansplained. And that's the one that gets me. There are both male and female gynecologists out there, and they're both male and female gynecologists that may not know a whole lot about hormone replacement therapy. But it really irritates me when a man who I know has not gone through any of this is mansplaining to me about what's not going on with my body. But you're right
Mm-hmm.
about that. You're right about getting the courage to do it. But I guess one of the things that I tell my clients is that self-advocacy is life-saving. And if you cannot do it by yourself, bring someone with you on an appointment so that you can have that discussion, because that sometimes is what you need, is someone to advocate for you, to say the words that are difficult for you to say, especially if you've been minimized in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that doesn't work, if even after all of that you're still being minimized, find a specialist who won't minimize your symptoms,
Right.
because there are effective, safe treatments, and you do not need to keep suffering. And if your symptoms are being minimized, if you're being brushed off, if you're being told that somebody else understands what's happening in your body better than you do, you need to find somebody else to talk to. There,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
resident OBGYNs. So these are generalist OBGYNs who are, or that are in training to become OBGYNs. Only about a quarter of those receive any specialized dedicated menopause training or any teaching on menopause specifically. And of that quarter that do, it's usually only about 2 hours, which is It's just horrible that that
It's
is
jarring.
how.
It's jarring to think about because we talked about how estrogen is responsible for 300 processes, progesterone and testosterone and cortisol and insulin sensitivity. All those things have their processes they're involved in too. So it's a huge amount of information and awareness that you need to have. And you're right, 2 hours is just scratches the
Right.
surface in terms of the
Oh,
things that you know.
it does. Yeah. And so that really next time, I hope it doesn't happen, but it helps to explain next time you're being brushed off by somebody why that's happening, because probably they don't feel comfortable treating. They don't feel comfortable dealing with menopause. And so it's much easier to say, oh, we don't recommend that, than to actually educate themselves and become comfortable treating the symptoms. So if you are coming up against brick wall, find somebody who has had more specialized training and
Yes,
has developed that comfort and that,
absolutely.
expertise in treating it.
Now let's talk a little bit about your service. Right now it's in California, but when
Yep.
someone calls in, what can they expect?
So when you become a member of Corla Health, you get a deep dive onboarding session. So that is not your 10-minute, the doctor's kind of looking at you, but also looking at their computer, rushed appointment. So we do a full hour appointment to really dive into exactly what's going on for you, what is happening in your body, what your priorities and your long term goals are, and then creating a comprehensive, personalized care plan for you individually. So, we'll run all the tests that are necessary to really dive into exactly what's going on for you. And we are so guided by what you tell us, what your symptoms are, what you're dealing with, what your goals are, and attacking the issue step by step based on that. So we have a deep dive onboarding session. You have all of your follow-up appointments, a prescription sent to either your favorite local pharmacy, or we can have them delivered straight to your door for convenience, and all the onboarding sessions. And then you have 24/7 access to your specialist as well. So no more playing phone tag with the receptionist, and then eventually you get a message passed through from your clinician. You have
Right.
direct access to
And I
your
have to say
clinician.
that I went to the service and just to see what it was like, because full disclosure, we are working on doing a collaboration together and I am an affiliate of Corla Health. But one of the things I really liked about it was when I went to make a video appointment, there was openings like for the next day with my managed care provider right now, which I won't name it, but my managed care provider, I signed up for a video appointment. When I go through the process and I take a look at the dates, it was 1 month later. And the situation that I was dealing with would not 1 month would not work. That was when I was going through the yeast thing. And I thought, okay, if I talk with someone over the phone, they can at least give me a prescription to get rid of the yeast. And that's before I stopped and allowed myself to think, because I know this stuff. Wait a minute, this is more serious than just a yeast infection. I don't want to put a band-aid on it. I don't want to throw a pharmaceutical at it. I want to get to the causation, which I know is more than likely hormones. But I've been doing this for 18 years. So I knew that. And I thought to myself, with someone who's going through what I was going through and a month appointment. Now, of course, I could have gone and seen my doctor right away, not right away, within a week or so. But I thought a video appointment would get me in front of them that much sooner. And what I ended up doing, which I believe a lot of women do, I went to the ED. I said, okay, I'm just going to
Mhm.
walk in. I'm itching all over the place. It's getting to be embarrassing. I'm looking always for a place in public that I can itch. That's crazy.
Mhm.
And so I went into ED because I couldn't get the service fast enough. And what I like about you is that your calendar is available. You set aside a whole hour if necessary. People do get your contact information so they can call you if something is going on. And you guys are able to prescribe and to really help women through this process. Because I think one of the things that's most important to women as they begin this journey is that they be listened to and that they be heard.
Oh, absolutely. The power of just being actually listened to and actually acknowledged in what you're telling somebody. I mean, it's incredible that that is hard to come by at this point. That's where we are.
Absolutely. I'm excited about the service and I'm looking forward to working with you. For all of you who are listening, we do have all of their media in the show page. So take a look at Corla Health and
Yeah.
also follow them on their social media and go ahead and check them out because they definitely do have some wonderful services. They specialize in what's going on with your body right now when it comes to perimenopause, menopausal, postmenopausal, all those menopause things that are going on with your hormonal health. And with that comes so many things. Don't ignore the symptoms. And if you're not getting the service that you need and feel like you need some extra special, tender, loving care, then Corla Health, if you're in California in particular, is a way to go. You are not alone. You do not have to suffer. Dr. Christy, thank you so much for being on the V.I.B.E Living podcast. It's been great having you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of you. I love bringing you information that I think is going to be helpful, especially when it comes to an alternative way to be well in your mind, body, and spirit. You have choices and you are not alone. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day. And don't forget the V.I.B.E. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.